Hello, this is going to be a short tutorial on how to use all the tools in the Slide tab and Table tab in Google Slides. So if I click on the Slide tab, it's going to bring up all my options for a slide that I have selected. Currently, I have the third slide selected, so if I hit New Slide, it's going to put a new slide beneath that slide. That is no different than going to the plus sign in the toolbar and putting a new slide beneath that slide. If I go back, selecting the third slide and go to the Slide tab, I can duplicate and quickly copy the slide. No different than right-clicking on a slide and saying copy or duplicate. You have the same option by right-clicking as you do going to the menu and doing this. Just kind of want to show you multiple ways to do the same thing. Again, I can hit slide and then delete that slide. No different than going to this slide and hitting right click and saying delete slide. So a lot of the options you have in the slide tab, you also have by right clicking on the tab, or the slide. So if I go to slide and say skip slide, this is a really nice feature if you want to hide something in your presentation and you feel like you don't need to cover it when you present it. Or you found some changes you want to do later on, but you don't want to delete the slide. What that looks like is I click on the first slide and hit present, and then note when I click, it totally skipped that currency slide. If you right click on it and say don't skip the slide, or go up to the menu and do what I just did right here, then when you go to present, you'll see that it will present that currency and tennis racket picture slide. Okay, moving on down to the next few options. Changing the background is essentially the same thing as going to background and changing it here. Just another way of getting to it. And again, that basically lets you change the color of your screen. Also lets you choose an image. So I can search for an image right now and pick this image and make that my background and say done. So that's another way that you can change the background. Going down to slide, I can change the layout of a slide. So I can come to this slide and say, okay, I want this layout. No different than going to the toolbar and saying, I want this layout as well. So multiple ways to do the same thing. Changing transition is going to add animations to your slide. And then basically you can click on something you want to add an animation to and say add animation. This one's going to happen on a click. I can say I want it to fly in from the left corner, and I can hit play to preview that animation that I added. Now note, I didn't type anything in it, so you wouldn't have seen anything. Now you will. So when I click, you'll see the example come in, and it shows you on the timeline of your animations. Now note, I can always add an animation by clicking on a slide on the background and say transition, and it brings that up as well. And note, you can always right click on it and add an animation to it as well. So lots of options to add animations, not just one way to do it. Moving down the slide to edit master, which is probably one of the unique things that you would want to go do. And that lets you edit the main template and all the different options that happen with bullets and numbered lists. So for example, for this one, I don't want to use this list the way it is. I can go and say, I want to use this one and have these different options for it. So you can make master changes on something you want to keep throughout your slideshow when you do it by going into this view. Moving down to the theme, this lets you change the theme for your whole slideshow. Very much so the same thing if you were to come on your toolbar and change the theme as well here. Can still access it on the toolbar, and you can access it up here. Let me select a slide and go back to here. Now, these let you kind of move your slide specifically to a location. So what if this slide needed to go to the end? I could just left click and drag it to the end and let go. But what if I've got a really lengthy slideshow? I can go on this slide, click and say slide, and I can say move to the end. Same thing, I can say move to the beginning. Or I can say slide, move down one. You kind of have these generic options to move the slides around wherever you want to go. Again, I can go to next slide and move down my timeline and put my selection on a certain slide on the slide timeline. So that's basically an overview of all the tools that you can use on the slide tab. Going now to the the table tab, I'm going to show you how you can quickly insert a table and do some basic functions. If you click on the table tab, you're going to go to insert table and then kind of move your cursor over the table size that you want, and then you left click and you have it in your slideshow. Some nice things you can quickly do. You can highlight with your mouse an entire row and right click and merge the cell. And so you can make that table have one merged cell. And then again, going into your table tab, now all your options show up where that cursor is at, I want it to put a row above. And if you highlight all 3 rows and then say table insert row above, it's going to put 3 rows above for you. Same thing if you do that with the column, and so on. Again, you can highlight and select a number of rows and go to the table and say delete those rows. So you have some generic options with editing that table. So I hope this was a good overview of the tools that you can use in the slide menu and in the table menu. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial.